Good day, everyone. This is Darrell McCutchen here with Darrell McCutchen Marketing Success. I have with me today my dear friend, Mr. Harold Crawford. He's a very, very busy man, so we're taking this opportunity to share with you his delight, his excitement about the release of his first book. Harold, thank you so much for being here with us today, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. How are things going for you?
Oh, going good.
Things are going well.
I'm working.
Okay.
Finished my book.
Okay.
And I'm excited about that.
Awesome. You know, Harold and I have done a couple of interviews before, and this is our chance to get together again, so we hope that you all will appreciate the information that we're going to be sharing. So, again, Harold, we've got our book.
Yes.
And ladies and gentlemen, here's Harold's book. It's Soul Therapy, a personal experience approach to consciously knowing God knows me, by none other than Mr. Harold Crawford. Now, I was able to catch Harold. He's very, very busy, so we are shooting this live here at one of the local hotels here in the Indiana area. So there may be some distractions, but we're going to try to get this done for you. So Harold, this has been a long, long project for you, man. I know you've been talking to me about this book, and you know, now here it is. You know, it's not just talk now. You know, you actually have produced it.
Yes.
So I want to give you an opportunity, man, just to, first of all, when we were connecting before and shot our other video, you were doing some things, and now you're doing some other things.
Yes.
So how did this come about? How did this book come into fruition?
Well, the book came about through conversations I was having with people. When I got to the place in life where I began to seek to know God, I had an experience that caused me to seek God in more of, I'm not sure, in a personal way.
In a personal way.
Yeah. And that experience was an actual spiritual experience that I remember.
Okay.
Now, what triggered me to write the book, I started talking to people about spiritual experiences, and I was getting answers like, I was getting comments like, I don't know what you're talking about. You mean to tell me you can actually experience spiritual reality? The Bible tells you how to live your life.
Sure.
Some people would say, I don't believe that. And the people that I was talking to was church-going people.
Okay.
And that kind of confused me, because I'm saying, now wait a minute. If you're going to church, church is about spiritual reality. You should be encountering, you should be experiencing spiritual activity, in my mind, for real.
Sure.
I mean, when we read about the Bible, they actually experienced spiritual reality. But then I'm talking to church people, and they're telling me they don't believe it, or they're not sure if that's for real, or the Bible tells you what to do. The Bible tells us that the Spirit of God will lead us, teach us, and guide us into all truth. And in my mind, if the Spirit is going to teach us, lead us, and guide us, shouldn't we be having a conversation with the Spirit like you and I are having right now?
Sure. So then with that being said, and we don't want to release too much here, because we do want them to read the book. So I know you can get warmed up and you can go.
Yeah.
I know you can go. So we don't want to release it all to you. We want you to read the book. Okay? Get the book and read the book. So with that being said, you had experiences with people, and you were driven by responses to certain questions. And I know you, Harold, you're a very analytical guy. You're a very intelligent man, and you perceive
Thank
things.
you.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And you put a lot into the thought process of how people interact, how they communicate, how they conversate, and how they think and how they feel and how they believe. Not taking ownership of that, because each individual is their own.
Right.
But I know that you personally, you've always been, I use the word analytical, but you evaluate.
Yes.
So that's something that is your niche, and I've always respected you in your niche there. So what I want to do here, and
let me add something to that.
Sure.
Being being an analytical person and looking at things deeply and thinking deeply about things, I also approach the work I do and the writing I've done based on my spiritual experiences with God.
Sure.
You see, because I think that's the foundation of what Jesus was trying to tell us when he was here. He came from heaven or spiritual place into the physical place to bring a spiritual message. And sometimes I feel like I'm not sure if we're getting that message. So much of what I say in the book is based on my actual spiritual experiences that I have had with God, and I know other people have had them too. But a lot of time, the other day I had a young man telling me that he had an experience where he was driving his car. He was about to have an accident, and at the last second, it's like something took over and turned the wheel, and he avoided hitting the car. He didn't hit anything in the medium or in the grass he was in, and he got back on the highway, no incident. And he told me he know it wasn't him, but he told me that he's not telling people about it because they might think he's crazy or something. Now see, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I believe God still does that, but for some reason it seems like people have a difficult time talking about it.
Sure. Well, you know, we know that people will perceive situations and incidents in their own way, and we always leave room for that. We know that in regards to spirituality, it is of the evidence of faith and the substance of faith. And, you know, a person has to grow into that.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Person has
Definitely
to
a growing
grow into
process.
that. So with that being said, let's move forward on this thing, man. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to hit the actual table of contents. And Harold, I'm going to ask you not to get too extended.
Okay.
I just want you to just hit a couple of bullet points for specific table of contents. And I might just go through all of them, okay? But we don't keep you all too long. Again, we want you to get the book. Okay, so in your table of contents, of course, you know, you've got your introduction, which tells a little bit about yourself, I'm
Yes.
sure, and how
Yes.
this all came about. Your first section is about education. Just give me just a couple minutes, nothing extended,
Okay.
what that's about.
But education for me, it's kind of a twofold. One, you have your education that you receive when you're growing up in the family and in the school life. There's a certain kind of education. But then you also have your education as it relates to I won't say God experience, but I want to say as it relates to religion.
Okay.
Because I see the God experience and religion as two different things.
Sure.
So my educational process, it involved, you know, the way I was brought up, which I talk about in the introduction, and my high school education and my college education. I've been through the University of School of Theology, have a master's degree, but I place more emphasis on the classroom of life than I do on the master's degree, because everybody is educated in the classroom of life. Everybody has some kind of education from the classroom of life. And to me, that is the most important education, as you understand how it fits into your life and how it shapes the kind of person you are.
Okay. The next section is, it says, who am I? You also have it underneath body, soul, and spirit. Briefly, just briefly.
Now that's an exciting chapter for me, because I begin with the creative process of when the sperm and egg meet, and that egg is fertilized and it starts to grow. In that moment, for me, a new soul comes into existence. And so who am I? I am this combination of my mother and my father coming together, creating a unique being who is me. Genetically,
right,
and spiritually. Because in that moment that egg starts to grow, I think the soul comes into existence, similar to when God created the first human, and it was just an inanimate form laying there. And the Bible says God blew God's breath of life into this inanimate form, and it became a living soul in the moment that God's breath was breathed into it. Similar to, I think, the process of us coming to existence. When the sperm and egg meet, once it starts growing, in that moment the soul comes into existence. Kind of like God breathing breath into the form, the lifeless body that He created.
Okay. Spiritual. The next content area is spiritual reality. Spiritual reality. Briefly, spiritual reality.
Spiritual reality to me. When I first accepted God in my life, accepted Jesus in my life, and when I say Jesus, I preface that with the pre-incarnate Jesus. And what I mean by pre-incarnate Jesus is the Jesus that stepped out of heaven into a human form and back out of that human form. I don't place a lot of emphasis on the human form because I'm not really looking at that. I'm looking at the Jesus who existed prior to the human form.
Sure. Okay.
And spirituality, that's one reason I'm kind of big on spirituality, because it was the Jesus Christ who stepped out of spiritual reality into physical reality. And my first encounter of that, when I accepted Christ in my life, I was having spiritual experiences. And so I went to my pastor and I said, Pastor, I need to talk to you about some things that's happening to me. And I started explaining to him some of the spiritual things that was happening to me. And he looked at me and said, I don't know what you're talking about. And in that moment, I was a bit confused. I was a bit shocked, because I said, now wait a minute. You are supposed to know spiritual things. And so that was one of the impetuses that began the quest for me to really seek into spiritual experiences. And my first, let me say this, and my first experience that really got me seeking God, I caught God at work in my life.
Okay.
And that story is in the book. I may not want to tell here because it takes quite a bit of time. He said, don't tell me.
Don't tell. We want you to read the book. Get the book and read the book. And then, of course, the entitled last, well, not the last, but the last table of content area is soul therapy. So take soul therapy. Give me a couple of comments about it. And then what I want you to do, most importantly, is to wrap this up within a few words and tell people why they should get this book.
Soul therapy. During the process of my growth, I've been seeking to be in relationship with God for over 30 years. And as I said, I've had certain spiritual experiences along the way. My career, I was involved in what I could tell people is the ministry of human service work, because human service work has been ministry for me. I mean, I've worked with people in youth facilities, shelter care programs, behavior change programs, and for the last 10 plus years, I've worked with a licensed clinical social worker who developed a therapeutic model for working with severely traumatized young people. Now, as I learned that therapeutic model, I've seen how that model works, but at the same time, God was showing me some things about myself. Some of the things I was hearing from the model resonated with what the Spirit had been showing me about myself. And so I began to work on myself along with this licensed clinical social worker, and I realized that there is a process to healing trauma.
Sure.
I wanted to say overcome it, but I don't think we ever fully overcome it, but we can integrate it to a place where we can be more balanced people, especially those of us who have been severely traumatized.
Sure.
So it is a process, and working with people in the human service arena and the Spirit giving me ability to perceive certain things about people, because I consider myself to be somewhat of an intuitive person. I perceive things, I sense things, I feel things about people and around people, and I've seen spiritual things before. Soul therapy is about helping persons who have an interest in spiritual growth process through their own, I call it stuff, or trauma life experiences, or experiences they have had that they're not certain about, or that they're uncertain about.
Sure.
I feel God has blessed me through my own life work and through my own experience with God to be in a position to help people process through that stuff if they have an interest in growing spiritually.
Okay.
You know, it's not for everybody, because everybody's at different levels.
Sure.
And see, if you get the book talks about some of the things I'm talking about now. And beyond the book, I would like to set up maybe even some spiritual growth groups for people who might be interested in maybe even processing or even talking about spiritual reality. Because my interest is for people to grow spiritually, as I'm convinced God is causing me to grow spiritually. And to grow spiritually, we need a setting in which we can deal with our spiritual experiences and activities.
Well, listen, thank you so very much, man, for just taking your time, you know, to just kind of cover this. No.
Thank you for having me
Oh,
and
yes.
working with me to do this, because I know you gave up some of your time to do this.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
It's good time invested. Now, the big question is, how can they get the book?
Well, right now, I haven't released the book on Amazon or anywhere to be sold yet. I have some personal copies because I'm going through it right now. I'm trying to get it edited out and make it, have as less mistakes as possible before I put it out on Amazon at different places to be sold. But I can get a personal copy. If they want a copy, I can get the copy because I have some copies at home right now.
Okay. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I will make sure that you will visibly be able to see a means of contacting Harold so that you can acquire this book. Have an opportunity to connect with him and discuss some of the different platforms and some of the engagement that he wants to take. This book, its purpose, its meaningfulness, and its applications within life, your life, someone else's life, moving forward to success.
Yes.
Harold, thank you so very, very much, man. It's been a
Thank you. I
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
man.
Right.
This is Darrell McCutchen with Darrell McCutchen Marketing Success. Thank you so much for joining us so that we can share with you Harold Crawford and Soul Therapy. Have a fantastic day.